Now we'll delve into Scrum's artifacts. These are the big nouns that are part of the Scrum framework. Scrum has only three: a product backlog, sprint backlog, and an increment. We'll start by having a look at the product backlog. A product backlog is the single source of truth for any change to be made to the product. As long as there is a product, there is a product backlog that corresponds to it. There's one item in the product backlog representing any change we might make. The expression of those items is really up to the team. The product backlog is ordered by the product owner, who owns its content, availability, and ordering. Every item in the backlog has at least these three pieces of data: a description, an order, and an estimate of effort by the development team. Now, the product backlog is solely owned by the product owner, and the product owner is responsible for ordering the items in the product backlog. Product owners take a lot of things into account when ordering a product backlog, and there's no secret sauce for how to do this. The product owner is the single wringable neck of accountability for the product backlog. Also, the product backlog is constantly changing. Scrum teams take a little bit off the top of the product backlog for each sprint and turn those into working software. The rest of the product backlog is open for change at any time. We'll let this stack of cookies stand in for a product backlog. It's reasonable, because a product backlog is ordered, to think of it as a stack of requirements, just like this is a stack of cookies. Each item in the stack has a unique position. There are no two product backlog items with the same order. Items that the product owner has ordered near the top of the product backlog are going to be more defined than items near the bottom. Also, they will be sized appropriately so that a development team will be able to accomplish the work described in each product backlog item in one sprint or less. Product backlog items near the bottom of the backlog don't have nearly as much detail. Oftentimes, we can put very large items into the product backlog that certainly would not fit within a sprint. These items will likely live near the bottom of the backlog and might be quite large. They can be decomposed later into smaller product backlog items that are ready for execution as this work gets nearer and nearer the top of the queue. Or a product owner may decide never to have these things ordered near the top of the product backlog, which means that it may never get worked on. It's not uncommon for product owners to represent user feature requests as a product backlog item, but prioritize it or order it very low. It's entirely possible that there is work expressed in the product backlog that will never get worked on. But we can recognize that expressing that product backlog item really was a waste of time, and it took a lot of energy to create. So we try not to have product backlog items that we're not actually planning to implement. Here's a scenario that's very common for product owners. Study the scenario and, as a team, propose an answer. Go ahead and pause the video, and we'll pick back up after you've discussed the scenario. What did you and your team decide to do? Did you let the person add the product backlog item or not? There is no rule in Scrum that governs this decision. This harkens back to the fact that Scrum is a framework and not a methodology. There is no one answer for the right way to handle this situation. The product owner, who's responsible for this product backlog, is going to have to do their job and make this decision according to context with the time. Perhaps we can get some guidance by looking at this question through the lens of Scrum values. Say that because we value openness, the product backlog is available to anyone who would like to see it, and anyone may insert items for the product owner's consideration. The product increment, or simply the increment, is the result of any successful sprint. The product increment includes all features from product backlog items that were done in the latest sprint cumulatively combined with the work of all previous sprints. That is, if we're working on a single product, each increment that we release from each and every sprint will bring with it the features that were already there. The product owner still has a role here to determine whether or not the product is ready to ship now that this increment is available. The development team is responsible for ensuring that any given increment is able to ship if the product owner deems it necessary. They do that by ensuring that there is no undone work in the product increment. And in order to ensure that no work is left undone, the Scrum team must have a definition of what done is. We'll certainly be talking more about the definition of done. For now, think of it as a checklist of items that must be true before we can call a feature done and present in an increment.